Welcome back. Let's get a wrap-up of international news. Here's Joyce Ohaja.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. We begin tonight in New Zealand, where the city of Christchurch and the entire nation are trying to come to terms with Friday's mosque attacks, which killed 50 people and left many critically injured. The response of the government of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has been swift.
The terror attack in Christchurch on Friday was the worst act of terrorism on our shores. It was, in fact, one of the worst globally in recent times. It has exposed a range of weaknesses in New Zealand's gun laws. The clear lesson from history around the world is that to make our communities safer, the time to act is now. This ultimately means that within 10 days of this horrific act of terrorism, we will have announced reforms which will, I believe, make our communities safer.
Christchurch is a city united in mourning, but also in defiance. Students from a number of schools came together to perform a haka, a ceremonial Maori dance to mourn the victims and honour the dead. Others met Muslim religious leaders in a show of solidarity. And at the Al Nur Mosque, where most of the victims died, there has been a steady stream of mourners. Some of those who were first to respond have spoken about the immediate aftermath of the mass shootings.
We tried to get our stretcher into the mosque, but we couldn't because there were fatalities in the way. We ended up having to lift the bodies over top of other bodies onto our stretchers.
The police investigation is the largest in New Zealand's history, and Prime Minister Ardern stressed the significance of the challenge posed by the attacks.
If we're to continue to ensure the safety of our Muslim communities and others, the 200 ethnicities that live in New Zealand, we have to be alive to the fact that there are those who do not share our values of openness, of diversity, of compassion.
In the Dutch city of Utrecht, a gunman has opened fire inside a tram, killing at least 3 people and injuring several others. Police have said they are looking for a 37-year-old Turkish man in connection with what they are describing as a terrorist attack. Trains and trams have stopped running and schools were asked to keep their doors closed. The threat level throughout the province of Utrecht was raised to its highest point. And now to Mozambique, where it's feared as many as 1,000 people may have died in the flooding caused by Cyclone Idai. As well as the devastation of the coastal city of Beira, 2 rivers in the centre of the country, the Pungwe and the Buzi, have burst their banks. And the cyclone's path of destruction has continued into Zimbabwe. At least 89 people have died when the eastern and southern parts of the country were hit by torrential rains and winds of up to 170 kilometres an hour. A state of emergency has been declared, and it's feared the death toll will rise. And in Malawi, thousands of women and children have been left stranded in the southern Chikwawa district after floodwaters washed away their homes and gardens.
I only managed to rescue my children while all of my property was inundated by the water.
More flooding, this time in the United States, where 2 people have been killed in Illinois. Forecasters say the water levels are expected to continue to rise through the week, prompting evacuations in riverside communities. And from one weather extreme to another, the Dominican Republic is in the grip of its worst drought in 30 years. The northwestern region is most severely affected, but authorities say that all but 2 of the country's dams have below normal water levels. In France, a government minister has described security measures as a failure during the Yellow Vest protest on the Champs-Élysées in Paris on Saturday. These were the scenes when an estimated hardcore of around 1,500 clashed with police and ransacked stores and restaurants. Junior Interior Minister Laurent Nunez said serious questions had to be asked.
We need to examine what went wrong. Was it the position of these security forces? Were they in the right places, even though they were quite present on the Champs-Élysées?
And finally, hot drinks in the coldest of cafes. High in Indian Kashmir, tourists can enjoy tea and a snack inside an ice sculpture that resembles a Buddhist place of meditation. The structure is also a way of conserving water in winter. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks a lot, Joyce. Now for some sports, here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Yes, indeed. Super Eagles forwards Odion Igalo, Alex Iwobi and midfielder Shemi Ajayi are among the first arrivals in the Super Eagles camp, which opened today in Asaba Delta State. The three-time African champions will take on the Pirates of Seychelles in the final group game of the 2019 AFCON qualifiers on Friday at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. Meanwhile, Super Falcons head coach Thomas Dennerby has called to camp 30 home-based professionals for a preliminary camp as the 9-time African champions intensify preparations for this Women's FIFA World Cup taking place in France this year. The list has 4 goalkeepers, 8 defenders, 10 midfielders and 8 forwards. And that's a wrap on sports news. The news at 10 continues shortly.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The People's Democratic Party presidential candidate Alhaji Atiku Abubakar today filed his petition against President Buhari's victory in the February the 23rd presidential election. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ujoma Benyato. You have a good night.